I took 4 years of Spanish class in high school. Then, I got a job at a restaurant and realized that I couldn't speak or understand Spanish at all. So what was the point of these Spanish classes? It's a story that's all too common in the United States. You see, the Spanish language is a big part of the United States culture, with basically the entire rest of the Western Hemisphere speaking Spanish, outside of the US and Canada. It's only natural that the language found its way to its northern neighbors. You can't walk around a major US city for more than 10 minutes without hearing Spanish being spoken. Some of these Spanish speakers know English very well, some of them decently, and some of them not at all. If you work or engage with the average blue-collar job in the United States, such as in a restaurant, hotel, construction, landscaping, agriculture, or anything else outdoors, or if you just talk to the people around you, there's a high likelihood that you're going to encounter people who speak Spanish but don't know how to speak English. As a result, Spanish is commonly offered and encouraged in US schools, and a lot of students enroll in Spanish classes as a part of their general curriculum, oftentimes for multiple years in a row. But if you went on the street and asked these students if they could speak, read, or understand Spanish, you'd find that many of them can't even come close. Even after 4 years of studying, I was one of those students. The whole time, I thought that if I encountered some Spanish out in the wild, I would be able to follow right along. I got A's and B's in Spanish class for 4 years after all. Then, I got my first job working in a restaurant and realized that I had picked up a sense of false competence due to seeing my good grades in school. If I had asked our Guatemalan dishwasher, who was introduced to me as amigo, to rate my Spanish, he would have most certainly given me an F. This restaurant was the first place that I actually conversed with a native Spanish speaker that didn't speak English. Now, in my Spanish classes, we were grinding vocab flashcards, reading sentences, and even getting speaking and listening practice with our teachers. So why was I so lost when even trying to communicate and understand the most simple ideas in Spanish? Well, it's because I simply had no experience actually doing it. Let's think of learning Spanish as learning to play the guitar. Even if you learned all the different parts of the guitar, read and understood music theory, and watched thousands of hours of people playing the guitar, you still wouldn't know how to play it unless you actually picked up a guitar and tried. So, although I played air guitar with my teacher in school, I wasn't actually able to play real guitar when I picked one up. That guitar being Amigo, of course. Okay, great. But I was only able to practice with him maybe 5% of my shift at work, which was amazing every time, but it wasn't enough to make any serious progress. So I was really looking hard for a solution that would allow me to get as much Spanish practice as possible. People say the only way to really learn a language is to go to a place where that language is spoken. And now, I understood why. Where else was I going to get a high concentration of amigos outside of Guatemala? I spent some time thinking about that question when, out of nowhere, I got a message from an old friend. He said that he and some other guys that I knew were about to start playing the game World of Warcraft again. It's a game we all played as kids, and the game was bringing back its original retro version, so people like us could play the old version of the game we loved. I thought back to how much I learned from the game World of Warcraft. It's where I learned to type, the first place I was scammed, my first introduction to economics, social dynamics, the power of communication, and much, much more. At first I told him no, I didn't want to play World of Warcraft with him again. The game had pretty much taught me everything that it could. I had moved on to the game of life, and the lessons I was learning there were going to be a lot more valuable. Or so I thought. So they all started playing World of Warcraft, and I was still grinding away at that restaurant, trying to talk with Amigo as much as I could, all while I wished there was a way to find a whole world of amigos. I kept thinking about how much I learned from World of Warcraft, and all the random esoteric words I had in my vocabulary because of it, like rogue, warlock, hippogriff. It helped me expand my English knowledge, vocabulary, and reading comprehension like nothing else ever did. All of a sudden, I remembered that it was possible to change the language on World of Warcraft. There's no way that it would be able to teach me Spanish, would it? As soon as I could, I rushed to my computer and went to find out. Yes, World of Warcraft is available completely in Spanish, voices and all. When I first found that out, my previously mentioned friends were all playing World of Warcraft together in a Discord call. I joined them, and with my voice shaking from excitement of the linguistic journey ahead of me, I told them that I planned to make a World of Warcraft character and play with them. But the catch was, my version of the game was going to be completely in Spanish. Now unfortunately, my friends had already been playing the game for 3 months before I had the idea to turn World of Warcraft into Guatemala Simulator, which meant that they were around level 30 when I started my game at level 1. In case you don't know how World of Warcraft works, the first part of the game is leveling up from 1 to 60. And the second part is all of the max level content that you can do once your character reaches level 60. So you really only play the game with other players who are around your level, which meant that I was on my own while my friends played the mid-game content. That ended up being a good thing for my learning, as it forced me to immerse a lot more into the game. Now, don't get me wrong, these were great friends. They were more than willing to come and help me out with an occasional quest, and were always asking me to tell them how the Spanish version of the game translated to certain items. But I still had to put in quite a few hours of solo grinding, not in their Discord server, sitting with Google Translate open, and SpanishDict.com or Wiktionary as my online dictionary for further clarification on confusing situations. It was absolutely incredible. Week over week, I learned more and more from the solo grind on Spanish World of Warcraft, and I was able to put my skills to the test with Amigo at work. Making so much progress in such a short amount of time caused him to ask about my language learning method. And I could tell that he was touched that I was putting in so much work to be able to communicate with him. What he didn't know, though, is that it wasn't any work at all. At least it didn't feel like it. I was just playing World of Warcraft as I normally did. The game requires a bit of reading and research anyways, so after a few months, I hardly noticed that I was even playing in Spanish. The only thing that did break my immersion was the fact that I was playing on a US server. You see, I chose to play on the server that my friends were playing on, where the players all communicated in English. I was getting a ton of input immersion practice, reading and listening to the game, but I wasn't getting any output practice by talking to other players, because all of my typing and speaking was still done in English. My only Spanish output practice at the time was talking to Amigo at work. After a few months of playing like this, I was around level 45 in the game. I don't know what my Spanish level would have been if life was a video game, but I could read it pretty quickly and accurately at this point. Now here's where things changed, and I really leveled up my learning, with writing, listening, and speaking practice all at once. My friends had all reached the max level in World of Warcraft, 60, and they were playing the endgame content. Compared to leveling up, the endgame content is a lot more stressful and demanding. When I did join them on Discord, they were always debating about boss fights, farming materials, and discussing optimal gameplay strategies. Then one day, not long after that, I had noticed that my friends, who were normally playing World of Warcraft together at every possible moment in which they were online, were all playing different games. A few of them were talking together in Discord, so I jumped in their call and asked them if anyone would be willing to help me with a dungeon in World of Warcraft. Bro, we're so done with WoW. It's just too much drama, is what they told me. That's right. My friends rage quit the game before I was able to join them at max level. So there I stood, at level 45 out of 60, with a large motivating factor for me to play the game gone. I'd really become a fantastic Spanish reader, so with my friends gone, what more could this game teach me? Then I noticed that there was an announcement on the main menu of the game. The game was offering server transfers from the higher population realms to the lower population realms. A lot of players were complaining that the higher population realms had too much lag, and the lower population realms didn't have enough players. And this was a way to alleviate those problems. Not expecting anything, I just looked at the server list to see which servers were available to transfer to, when I noticed something that left my eyes open wide and my mouth loose. One of those servers was called Lothab, and it was designated as a Latin American server. That was the first time I had heard of a game even having a server dedicated to Latin American players, so I had to go and check it out. I made a level 1 character there, and sure enough, all of the players were communicating completely in Spanish. It seemed too good to be true. So I thought for a moment and felt that instead of starting a character over from level 1, I'd take advantage of that server transfer offer and move my level 45 character to the Latin American server, Lothab. Now, you can probably imagine the rest, but I'll tell you anyways. I still had quite an adventure to go on. Leveling from 45 to 60 involved a lot of collaboration with other players. The difference was, now the collaboration was being done only in Spanish. It was awesome, because I got to effectively pretend that I was a native Spanish speaker too. People just assumed that I couldn't type well. Remember, people often even write their own native languages incorrectly, so I fit right in. Between doing group quests, trading, 5-man dungeons, and helping lower level players, by the time I got to level 60, I was pretty good at Spanish typing. What I didn't realize is that the better I got at typing, the better I got at speaking as well. Whenever I would speak with Amigo at work, I was basically imagining the World of Warcraft text font in my head, which helped me understand him better, and helped me craft my own sentences based on the things that I was commonly typing in the game. Now, the final boss of learning a new language, at least if you ask me, is being able to communicate without seeing the person that you're talking to, such as on a phone call, or if you're playing a game, Discord, or another chat application. Once I reached the max level in the game, conveniently enough, that meant that it was time for me to start using voice chat, because a lot of the endgame content involves doing things in groups of 20 to 40, where it's a lot more efficient to communicate via voice. That's basically what rounded out my speaking and listening skills. At that point, I explained that I was from the US, learning Spanish by playing on the Latin American servers, which a lot of them thought was funny, but definitely respected. Some actually spoke very good English, but the majority really couldn't. Eventually, I joined a guild with hundreds of other players, played the game at its highest level, made friends from every Latin American country, and defeated the final boss of language learning, communicating blindly without any visual cues. Now, I travel around the Western Hemisphere and use the Spanish language skills that I've learned. Thanks to World of Warcraft, I was able to conquer the 4 pillars of learning a language: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. This method can be copied with virtually any game and language. Obviously, the more popular the game and the more popular the language, the easier it will be. I decided to make this channel to encourage other people to do the same. Anyone who plays video games knows the negative reputation they get for being degenerative, normalizing violence, and being a waste of time. But I want to encourage people to focus on the positives of video games: critical thinking skills, hand-eye coordination, and language acquisition and development. There are quite a few people that have never been to an English-speaking country, yet speak very impressive, if not fluent, English. If you ask around, you'll often find that the ones with the highest level of English will often cite video games as what really got them so advanced. I hope that this video encourages you to use video games to learn a foreign language. There's all kinds of other content about this on my YouTube channel, so if you'd like to learn more, I have a ton of other content to dive into. If you have a similar story about learning languages with video games, or if you have any idea about other content in the same sphere, please let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.